Welcome, pudding people, to another episode of Everybody Loves Pudding. I am your host, Ken Seymour, with your other host, Richard Geiger.
Well, hello, all three other of you people.
Are you indicating we have guests today? Maybe the fantastic Delvin Cox from the Delvin Cox Experience, or the wonderfully talented Linzi Gray from the Rosenbaum and Gray Hour? Yes, we do.
I was just thinking about our imaginary friends, but I guess they're here too. So,
how's everybody doing?
Hey, everybody.
Now, as you can see, this is going to be mildly, chaotic. So we'll try and keep it as simple as possible. We are going to be talking about a very serious topic that is extremely important to me, and that is Saturday morning cartoons, because I don't want to talk about politics or anything else that will depress me at this point. I want to talk
Thank
about fun.
God. Oh my goodness. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk about sports. I mean,
I can't do that right now either. My Heat lost.
Well, I'm showing my dedication right now. The Bears are on and they're playing, and I never get to watch them. And I'm here chatting about Saturday morning cartoons. So dedication for the podcast and for the people that I am talking to.
Well, we definitely appreciate it, because your insight is going to be critical in this. I'm certain of it. It's going to be a key to understanding elements of psychology, and I got nothing really after that.
And there goes my dog in the background. I apologize. He had something he needed to say.
Yes.
Don't we all?
Oh, I agree. Yes.
Well, let's start with kind of going with the kind of the time frames that we're all coming at this from. Now, I must admit, I'm going to cheat just a little bit. We're talking about Saturday morning cartoons, but I'm kind of going to include some afternoon cartoons too, because it's kind of the same feel, and especially as things have changed over the years, it's just kind of one of those things that's necessary. So now, me personally, I watched most of my daytime cartoons in the 1980s, and maybe just a smidge into the 1990s. And anything else I saw after that was because of children. What about you, Richard?
Yes, that would be true. Now, I will say I still watch cartoons now. Now, the cartoons have evolved, but it's different. Cartoons are much more accessible. There's more variety of them. When we watched them, we had 5 TV stations to watch anything on. So there was no DVR. There was kind of a VCR, but not really. So it was appointment television for Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning to watch shows. And my sister was older, so she didn't really watch them with me. So it was just me hanging out in front of the TV.
What about you, Delvin?
I gotta say, I think I was probably born at one of the best times to watch cartoons in terms of Saturday morning cartoons, because I was born exactly in 1980. So I got to see some of the best Saturday morning cartoons and actually watch the ending of Saturday morning cartoons, because when I want to say getting into high school, junior high school, that's when they started dying off. And, the shows like Saved by the Bell happened and California Dreams, and that kind of marked the end of Saturday morning cartoons, because that block started to lean towards a more of a teenager audience. And then eventually that block leaned towards a old 70-year-old and older audience, as they just got rid of cartoons completely and put infomercials there and Wide World of Sports and bowling at that time. So, yeah.
What about you, Lindsay? Did you get to enjoy some Saturday morning cartoons?
I did. So since I was born in 84, I got to enjoy some, late 80s cartoons, of course, 90s cartoons, and I'll admit some 2000 cartoons, but nothing, in my opinion, nothing beats everything from like late 80s and early 90s. That was the best time.
There's some good stuff in there. Now, I don't know if any of you had the same kind of experience that I did, but as Richard was saying, only a handful of channels. And when you grow up in a certain, say, financial bracket, you're kind of limited on options. So sometimes the stuff that you would watch would not be the freshest.
You mean broke, Ken? When you are broke,
Yes.
you don't get the luxury of watching every cartoon channel because you only have maybe 4 channels to watch. Period.
Yeah. But there was a certain roadblock to my viewing pleasure in the mornings, but that also kind of opened up just a little bit of some of the older stuff. Now, I'm sure you guys are probably already aware that not all of the cartoons that were kind of Saturday morning cartoons necessarily started out that way. A lot of them were primetime cartoons, some of them from the 1940s, 1950s, that kind of transitioned into being kind of those Saturday morning cartoons. If you
Yes.
think back to the old Flintstones, for example, was kind of in that category. Now, I didn't watch a lot of the old stuff like in the 40s and 50s. I mean, I saw some Gumby, Dudley Do-Right, Fractured Fairy Tales, that sort of thing. But did you guys end up seeing any of that older stuff that really just stuck with you?
I saw all of it.
Me too.
I can tell you why, because when I was younger, my grandmother used to take us to the flea markets, and they used to sell these cassette tapes for like $5. They had they were like labeled like 50s cartoons, 60s cartoons, 70s cartoons, and they had a whole bunch of cartoons on it. Like somebody just got like an SLP tape. For those who don't know, SLP is like the longest version of VHS tapes you can make, and they put like a whole bunch of cartoon shows on it, and they were like hours of like Popeye cartoons, Betty Boop, Woody Woodpecker.
Ooh,
So
Woody.
I would
Woody's
just sit
great.
there and watch those shows after Saturday morning cartoons, go off all day. That was my jam.
Jetsons was great too.
Jessup was awesome.
No, you seem like a Popeye person, Lindsay. Where was that where you're interested?
Actually, I can remember just watching, like, my parents introduced me to Rocky and Bullwinkle, the Rocky and Bullwinkle show that had Fractured Fairy Tales and Sherman and Peabody, and all that. So yeah, I mean, I remember all that stuff. Just my parents just teaching me, Flintstones, the Jetsons, an old school cartoon called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. So I grew up, I was lucky enough to have parents that just were like, you're not just going to watch the cartoons that they have today. You're going to watch what we grew up with too, which I am very thankful for.
Yes.
It is important to learn about moose and squirrel.
And a lot of those, if you think about it, did have some live action interpretations of them as well. So they were loved enough and stuck around long enough that people tried to make them mainstream in a sense. But yeah,
Some went better than others.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Does anybody know what Natasha's last name is?
Romanov?
Not Avengers, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
No, what is it?
It's Boris Bednoff and Natasha Fatale. Femme Fatale.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I should have remembered that. My slowly addling mind is just kind of getting rid of it. Now, there were some kind of interesting things. Or at least you start seeing commonalities to the people that work on the projects. I mean, like with anything else, you're going to go from one job to the next, and you kind of get these voice carryovers on some of them that were really kind of interesting. Like I mentioned Popeye back in the day, but Jack Mercer was the voice actor that did Popeye, but he also did Felix the Cat. So, I mean, you would hear these voices that would go from point to point, or you'd even see them in kind of live action things. Did any of you watch Mr. Magoo?
I did. I used to love Mr. Magoo.
So yeah, the old guy has no idea what he's getting himself into. Just classic silly stuff was voiced by Jim Backus. That's the same guy that was Thurston Howell on Gilligan's Island.
Yep. For those who don't know, Gilligan's Island is a very old TV show. For the younger generation who doesn't know it, it was a very good TV show. But yeah. it's
Stop
dope.
looking at me, Delvin. I know what Gilligan's Island is. I used to watch it with my grandparents. Okay, thank you
I
very
don't
much.
believe you. I don't believe you at all.
My bulldog's name is Thurston.
Well, that's because
Nice.
he drinks a lot of water.
Bite me, all right?
I just like you guys more and more every time I hear these little things.
Delvin and I never disappoint.
Yeah, I will agree with that. What about Yogi Bear? Were you guys kind of Yogi Bear guys?
Hey, boo boo. Hey,
How about getting us a picnic basket?
Gotta get a picnic basket from the Ranger. I love
Now-
Yogi Bear.
Now, that
like
was
Boo
an
Boo.
interesting thing. Yeah, Boo Boo was great. Boo Boo. Don Messick voiced
Yes.
Boo Boo. And he also did Droopy. I'm so happy.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like Droopy. Droopy was
Yeah.
cool.
When did that style of arranging cartoons change? Because I mean, we were talking about that, the fractured fairy tales, and Yogi Bear was the same way. You got multiple cartoons in the same cartoon, little snippets of stories. When did they start phasing that out in favor of like an entire 30-minute episode?
Probably around the Filmation generation.
Well, Animaniacs still does it, or did it back in the
Yeah.
early 90s. I don't know if the new one is going to do it, but I do know Animaniacs did it. They had Pinky and the Brain. They had the Good Feathers.
Yeah.
And that was what?
90s.
Yeah, mid 90s.
Was that Steven Spielberg?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Hard to believe
But I-
that he had his hand in something like that.
They kind of went back to the well with that in terms of making cartoon episodes shorter. Like this generation cartoon shows are a lot shorter. Like Adventure Time episodes average like 10, 15 minutes. Teen Titan Goes 10, 15 minutes. So instead of getting one episode, you get two shorter episodes each time they show it. So it's interesting how that works out, how they kind of changed that format. You don't really get the 30-minute cartoon shows anymore like you used to.
But you do get things like you're just talking about. They're doing the Animaniacs again. They're bringing it back. A lot of these shows are so cyclical. They can't let them go, whether they're successful or not. It's really kind of strange. I mean, I'm thinking about it. I was looking at some of the stuff from the newer things. I saw, oh, look, Sabrina. Well, of course, they got the live action Sabrina, but they also got the animated Sabrina, a couple of animated Sabrinas. And then, of course, you got the live action Sabrina before that. But you had another animated Sabrina. It goes all the way back to the 1960s. There was an animated Sabrina show.
Well, I think that's probably because most parents now are like us and they can't get past their old cartoons. So they just figure, hey, let's just remake them again for these kids so the parents can watch it with these kids. And unfortunately, as a parent who does that sometimes, 9 times out of 10, those cartoons aren't as good as the originals.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have the same flair to it. Like, there are some exceptions. Like I've watched the old Ninja Turtles cartoon show with my son and stuff, and he loves that one. Then I watched the one from 2012 cartoon show with him, and he loves that one too, because they're both just as good for different reasons. So it does work out sometimes, but for the most part, no, it's not a really good.
Or is the
Original
reason
is
that
always
they're
better.
is the reason that they're being remade is because no one has any original ideas.
I think that
Amen.
plays with it. I think that plays into it, but I think also that the original ideas don't get pushed and don't get watched enough. Like one of my favorite shows that came out this past generation, that's a cartoon show, is called Infinity Train. It is a fantastic cartoon show. It's on, I think they put all the seasons on HBO Max. Each episode's like 10, 15 minutes. I highly recommend whether you watch it with your kids or not, Infinity Train is an
Right.
incredible show.
Infinity Train. That's the one where there are 6 cars. Each is a different color. And when you assemble them all, you dance to 70s music.
Close. What the plot of it is that
Whoops.
there's this train that travels just in this different, I guess, environment. I want to say like another, like an infinite realm. And people who have problems get transported to this train, and they have to go through each section of the train and to get the number down on their arm till they fully solve their problems. It can be different problems, like it can be, they can have issues with depression and stuff like that, and they have to go through the train, each part of the train, to figure out why they feeling depressed or what's causing them to have these issues. And they can't get out the train until they solve the problem. And the more bad things they do on the train, the further their number goes up. So there are certain people who stay on the train because they're trying to escape their problems. So they just keep doing bad stuff so their number can keep staying up so they can stay on the train for eternity.
It's purgatory.
Yes, pretty much. The train is like purgatory.
And where is this? Where and what channel is this on?
It's on Cartoon Network, but they moved it to HBO Max.
Oh, you got
Great
HBO
show.
Max?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm gonna need your username and password, please.
Oh, and
Give it out to all the listeners.
Well, you can DM me that.
What about you, Richard? What's one of the older classics that kind of sticks with you that were maybe a little before our time?
well, the first movie that I ever saw in a movie theater was Smurfs and the Magic Flute. Now that movie I think came out in the 70s. I'm not that old. It was something that they had put back into theaters for people to watch at one of the local theaters. But that was the first one. But we would always get up to watch Smurfs really early in the morning. That was our jam, amongst other things.
Smurfs was great.
I seem to remember hearing something that the original source material, all the Smurfs were actually dead children. Kind of grim.
Ow. That's dark.
Something that told me somebody about it's like the actual story that began with the Smurfs was nothing how it turned out for kids because it was so creepy.
Probably a really good thing.
Interesting fact. The Smurfs was the first video game I ever played. It was on ColecoVision. Didn't know what it was. My granddad had a ColecoVision in his house. Said, hey, go play this ColecoVision. The game that was in it was the Smurfs. I'm quite sure that game was not good now. But I remember playing that game for hours on end.
It's memories. So one of my favorite shows kind of had a couple of different incarnations. I wonder if you guys kind of watch the same things. Now, my favorite version of it, partly due to the time frame and partly because all the newer ones are not as good. And I will argue this all day long. But Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was kind of one of my ones that I would watch all the time. But I mean, Spider-Man actually also had a cartoon all the way back in '67 that was like a Peter Souls voiced it, and he's even done a bunch of the video games with Spider-Man in it. I mean, you'll hear his voice and go, yeah, that's Spider-Man. But did you guys get into that sort of a thing? Like you, Linzi, were you a Firestar person?
Not really.
No. Oh,
I loved it.
Of course you did, Delvin.
Yes, I did.
More of an Iceman person.
I love Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. There was such a staple in my house watching that show, and it was one of the first times you really looked at Marvel shows and took them seriously, even though canonically, Firestorm wasn't part of them, and Peter Parker and Iceman didn't go to college together and become roommates and start this fantastical team, but it was cool to see those characters on screen together. And to add to that, that show was a perfect counter to the Super Friends.
Mm-hmm. They're in college. They have the same apartment that turns into their secret base. All the walls spin around into computer equipment. And all I can think about going back is like, boy, the people next door just must hate them.
Yeah. And they all stayed in the same dorm room. Yeah. Note that 2 of them are guys, 1 of them is a girl. This was just okay with everybody. I don't think Firestar was dating anyone, but she was just living there.
It's Three's Company. Just kind of switched a little bit. Now, Iceman, that was Frank Welker. Like if I ever wanted to meet a voice actor that worked in everything, the industry, that is the dude that I would love to meet.
Yeah,
Megatron, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
ironic.
Galvatron.
because the person I want to meet is Peter Cullen. Optimus Prime.
Oh, so let me ask you guys this. One of the reasons I kind of wanted to talk to everyone about this is I wanted to get your thoughts, your perspectives on kind of one of the aspects of Saturday morning cartoons that I feel is kind of missing now. We were talking about this, how Saturday morning cartoons are not really present in the same way. I mean, you had the Saturday morning cartoons, you had the after school cartoons, and then it was eventually just kind of the after school cartoons. And then you had to have the channels to watch the cartoons that you wanted to watch. And then it was all day, maybe, depending upon what was playing. It feels like it's kind of one of those things that was a shared experience, something that everybody could have regardless of geographical separation, because we all had the same cartoons that we were watching for the most part, with some overlap here and there. But it was something that could bind people together, at least in one small way that it doesn't feel like exists in the same way. What do you think, Lindsay?
I agree. I'm sorry. I just think cartoons nowadays, like I think kids who aren't exposed to like the cartoons like we grew up with, or even cartoons beforehand, I think the parents are really doing them an injustice, because it is, our cartoons are just, you know, a lot of the things that they did in our cartoons. I mean, you can't get away with that stuff nowadays. And unfortunately, like Looney Tunes, for example, I mean, there would be somebody out there crying the fact that, you know, the Wile E. Coyote was being, you know, done wrong by the Roadrunner. And, you know, Elmer Fudd shouldn't be hunting rabbits. I mean, they already want to take, you know, the gun away from Yosemite Sam. It's like
Oh.
Yosemite Sam has 2 guns. I
That's
mean,
the point.
like, you know, why are you trying to ruin things? I guess, and it's just,
There's a lot of things Looney Tunes couldn't do today. Like,
oh, I know, I
Like-
know.
Bugs dressing in drag every episode would not be acceptable today at all.
Well, I mean, if you're going to give somebody a massage with your feet on top of their head, it makes sense to be in a dress while you're doing it. It's just,
Yes.
it melds. It's kind of perfect. What do you think, Richard?
Well, I think with Looney Tunes, you really got one of those things we talked about earlier, which was a cartoon and a cartoon, right? So that you had multiples, and there was different stories and different characters involved with different stories. I mean, I really, that was such a simple one. You know, in terms of what people said and did in that particular cartoon, there was nothing crazy about it, but it was just fun to watch. I was more of a Tom and Jerry fan, which was even less talking. It was just what was going on the screen with very little, you know, like kids today could never watch that because there's no talking, right?
So violent.
In the yeah, so violent of the giant hammer falling on, you know, a dog or a mouse or whatever. So it's just weird how those things to us are just so silly, but those parents today that would deem that as like, oh my gosh, that's just so bad, were the same ones that watched it when they were little. So I don't understand where their temperament came from over the last 20-30 years. Maybe they're watching too much stuff on their Facebook page or something.
Pretty
I don't
much.
know, maybe it's a lack of context. maybe context isn't the right word. Maybe it's a lack of comparative horror. Thinking about when some of these original cartoons came out, I mean, we had World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War. There were majorly heavy things going on that took the attention, that were super serious, and would be, you needed kind of levity, and anything from that is kind of good. we don't have that right now. I mean, we have engagements, but we haven't had a conflict that has had that same kind of representation in our current time frame. And so because of that, well, the attention maybe is a little overly focused on other areas, possibly.
We'll just think of some of the
Possible.
toys back then too. You know, GI Joe. GI Joe is a toy that came out that was this big thing that you could buy guns and you could buy all this, you know, let's call them cool because they were cool things, especially for kids back then. And then in our time, GI Joe came back even more. It was even stronger with guns and planes and tanks and explosions and TV shows and stuff like that. Like those types of shows, you know, you don't put on a public TV station right now, right? It goes on a cable only, or it goes on a subscription only thing, and it just changes the perception of things a little bit. And I don't know, am I desensitized by those things at my old age? Because none of those things ever bothered me, ever offended me, ever scared me. None of those things ever had that type of negative effect on me. Maybe they did, and being desensitized to those types of things is a bad thing. But it's just the way that I think when we were younger growing up, the way we grew up and the things we did are just, like anybody will tell you, just so different from what they are for our kids that are growing up right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Our cartoons were way better.
Yes. And to steer the ship back away into the more that went more serious than I intended it to. How about-
I have a fun question for you guys then.
Woohoo.
Okay.
Oh God.
What's the obscure cartoon show you used to watch when growing up? Or maybe it have to be on, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be on Saturday mornings, but obscure cartoon show you used to watch that people probably don't know about.
There are levels of obscure. I'm gonna let you guys go first, though.
I have a couple of them.
Let's let you start while everybody else thinks, and then
Okay.
come around.
I'm gonna come up with three right now.
All right.
One you may know, two you probably don't know. One is Pro Stars. You ever heard of Pro Stars?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. These cartoon shows are all around the same time frame where they were getting celebrities saying, hey, we're gonna make a cartoon show of you. You don't only have to show up for just one episode, maybe record 15 minutes of work and we're just gonna do the rest. And Pro Stars was when they got Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson and made a cartoon show out of them. And they were like crime-fighting superheroes and football, basketball, and hockey players. It was weird. I think it lasted only one season, but back then, one season was like 50 episodes.
Did they have a ghost involved?
They may have.
Huh.
That's long. I just remember very wide shoulders.
Yes, that was Bo Jackson. Yeah. But
I gotta look this up now. What is it called?
Pro Stars. And Michael Jordan, this was like during the height of Michael Jordan. And you can tell he got paid the most because I think he only said one line during the whole show. And that was it. Something about gotta get my Pro Stars, and that was it.
Here's your bag of money.
Yes. Everybody else, I think Wayne Gretzky and Bo Jackson had to show up on more of the episodes, and Michael Jordan was literally never there.
Yeah, I probably would have avoided it too.
Yeah, that's one of them.
All right.
The second one, I don't know if you guys remember this. You remember the movie House Party?
Are you about to go Kid and Play?
Yes. Kid and Play cartoon show
That
that
was
had
pretty good.
nothing to do with the actual movie House Party.
Nope.
But to piggyback off of House Party, they gave Kid and Play a cartoon show.
I remember that. I remember because I hadn't actually seen House Party, but I saw the show and it's like, who are they? I could see that there was supposed to be understanding and familiarity, and it wasn't there. So after about 5 to 10 minutes, like, yeah, let's change the channel.
It was so weird because it was like a music hip hop show and stuff, and it was Kid and Play, kind of being teens. I think they were in a pizza shop or something like that. It was so weird. because it was just a weird music cartoon show. It was cool as a young black kid seeing black characters in a black neighborhood and stuff like that. But it was
And-
also very weird because House Party wasn't for kids
No.
at all.
And they were less stereotypical. I
Yes.
mean, it was playing off of the movie sort of, but they had fully fleshed out personalities, and it wasn't something that would make you kind of cringe, which was nice.
Yes. And my third one, you may definitely know this one, but it's just so weird. Hammerman. Have you ever seen this?
I don't think
Have you ever heard of this?
I think I have.
I knew you did, Lindsay. I kind of figured you did. MC Hammer had a cartoon show called Hammerman, where he became a superhero when he put on these magic talking shoes.
Did they help him fight bankruptcy?
That is the only thing these shoes did not help him fight. But it was an actual show that lasted, I think, 2 seasons. Hammerman in MC's Hammer's Prime.
I miss MC Hammer.
I do too.
God, he was good. Oh, okay. How about we go to Richard? What's a deep cut for you?
Well, did anybody watch Tasmania?
I love Tasmania. Great show.
Why don't you get yourself a nice cup of iced tea?
A nice tall glass of OJ.
OJ.
It didn't last very long. It wasn't very many episodes,
No.
but it was. You take a character that is, definitely like a lower tier character, and then you make a show completely about that character and the character's family, and the character's family is not like what you would expect at all based on the character that you've been presented, and it's great. The dad is
Bing Crosby.
great. It's just,
Yes.
it was just hilarious. I don't know. It didn't last very long, but I enjoyed that one.
Fantastic show.
What about I feel like Snorks went on for quite some time, but I don't know if that was quite popular. It lasted for quite a few years, but
Wasn't it a spinoff of the Smurfs or something like that?
Yes. Well, as same production company, if I remember correctly, and they had crossover, but I don't think they started in the Smurfs. They just kind of did the whole thing that they do. It's like, well, we want to make the Smurfs, but orange with weird things on their head and in the water.
and in the
Let's
water, yes.
Have
Yeah.
one episode where they're going to do stuff together. And if you like the one, you'll come over to us.
Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I remember watching and enjoying. I remember nothing about the cartoon, and I could tell you none of the characters' names. But it just, for some reason, it's one of those that just stands out to me that I definitely watched and remember. If it tells you anything about how good it was, I remember absolutely nothing about it. So
What about you, Lindsay?
All right. Well, one of them, I found out what it was. It's not Pro Stars. I thought it was the same one, but it's actually the Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Oh, that's a great show.
Wow.
That just show, the first time I watched it, I was like, what the hell am I watching?
what is going on?
I never saw
Yeah. It's like, what is, no idea. No
It's on
idea.
Adult Swim. It's on
Yeah.
Adult Swim. It's great.
it. Tell me it has somebody doing his voice.
No, it's actually Mike Tyson.
Oh,
Yeah.
That sounds like a wonderful train wreck.
It's
It
actually Mike
is.
Tyson, and it's a comedy show. It's really good.
Well, he's got a casino and hotel opening up in I think it's Nevada. The only reason I know it is because I live in Hollywood now, and you see billboards all around. Of course, there's no S's in the name of the, casino at all.
Probably a good thing.
Does he?
Yeah.
Did he? He's got a line of cannabis products now, right? Doesn't he? He
Yeah.
has like
Yes,
his
he
own
does.
farm and his own products. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that has an S in it either.
Oh, okay.
So one
Mike
of the other
Tyson Mysteries is great.
One of the other cartoons I remember, and I used to love this, is called the Oblongs.
I remember Oblongs.
You remember the Oblongs?
Yes.
It was like this hoity-toity rich community that ended up getting like toxic waste poured on them, so they were all deformed and stuff. I don't remember much about it, but I know it was only on for 2 seasons, and I absolutely love the cartoon.
I forgot about that show.
It's a
Oh,
pretty good show.
that was
Yes.
the weird one. But
Was that a Cartoon Network one also?
It at first it was on the CW, and then it ended up being on Cartoon Network.
Yes.
okay, so all right. How about let's go easy. Dungeons and Dragons.
One of my favorite cartoon shows ever.
Of course it is.
It's a fun one.
Super great.
And they never really, if I remember correctly, it had one of the most agonizing endings of any kids show that I ever watched. Like, oh, they're going to go home. Wait, they're not. And there's no next season. What happened?
I have something interesting to tell you about it. And I'm happy you brought this up. One of my friends messaged me on Twitter, Wolfie. He messaged me on Twitter, and apparently,
Of course,
if you
Wolfie
buy
did.
I don't know if you guys knew this. If you buy the DVD of Dungeons and Dragons cartoon show, they have the last episode on there.
Whoa.
But it's only an audio recording of it because they never did the animation for it and stuff like that. Somebody went out and animated the final episode of Dungeons and Dragons and put it on YouTube.
That's awesome.
So if you go on YouTube right now, you can find a full episode, the final episode of Dungeons and Dragons, fully acted out by the original voice artist, looking like the show. It is great.
That does sound kind of wonderful.
I forgot the whole premise of that one was that they got transported into a whole different realm and they're trying to just get back home.
Yeah,
Depressing.
they got on the Dungeons and Dragons ride. The ride actually transported them to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And they're each episode of them trying to find a way home. And Venger is trying to stop them from getting home because he wants their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. And didn't Welker do Tiamat's voice?
Yes, Tiamat the Dragon.
Yeah.
Because he was in everything. Okay. I've got one, and it's crossover. Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
I used to love that show too.
So Lindsay sitting here is like, oh my God, these guys.
I tell you, when I say I am a cartoon encyclopedia, I've watched most of all the cartoon shows that ever existed. Like Rockin' Wrestling, I used to watch all the time. It was so old, it played Hulk Hogan's old theme song.
Oh yeah.
Before he got the I'm a Real American.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, Mr. T had a cartoon right around that time too. And
Yes, he did.
that one was
Way better.
but still so bad it was good kind of a thing. So I was
Yes.
like, well, we need Mr. T. We need some kids to hang around this large guy with chains and just be his but they have to meld. I know. We'll have one of the kids dressed just like him.
Oh, I will say this, and this goes back to what Lindsay said earlier. Mike Tyson Mysteries is based off of Mr. T. 100%. The same concept. Mike Tyson, a kid, a ghost, and a pigeon are trying to solve crimes and mysteries in a van.
Oh,
Hey, Delvin, please
Yes.
tell me for one Halloween you'll dress up as Mr. T.
I'm down to do that.
Because as y'all are sitting here talking, I'm just envisioning you dressed up as Mr. T. I don't know why.
We have enough people. Somebody could be the pigeon and someone could be the little kid. Be the whole group.
Well, I'm the youngest, so I'll be the little kid.
You can be the pigeon.
Why do I gotta be the pigeon?
Because you're the shortest.
oh,
Pigeons are dirty little buttholes.
rats with wings, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of are.
They'll peck your eyes out here in Hollywood.
Shoot him.
Speaking of Welker, I'll do one more that I watched that I always enjoyed because it was a cartoon that was based off of a television show that I never really watched until I was much older and found out it was based on a show from significantly earlier, and that was Inspector Gadget. I always had to watch.
I loved Inspector Gadget
Yeah, I mean, it's
with
just
Brain and Penny.
right, and the claws. I'll get you, Gadget.
That was a perfect claw.
Yeah,
So much fun.
that was pretty intense. I'm gonna need you to record that for me
Yes.
because I want that as my text tone, please.
Well, that was based on a show? I had
Yeah.
no clue.
It was Get Smart.
Oh, that does
Yeah.
make sense. I didn't know it was based off Get Smart, but that makes perfect sense now that you say that.
Yeah, that was some great stuff from back in the day. All right, so now let's go into the imagine your future portion of all of the cartoons that you've watched. That there was something that you would love to see modernized or recreated. What would it be? What about you, Richard? Let's start with you.
Well, there's so many, and I loved all the Spider-Man iterations, but they've done, like, no joke, on Disney XD, they've done like 17 different versions of it, and they're all slightly different.
Yes.
And the X-Men cartoon from the 90s was one of, at the time, the best things I could have ever watched, because I loved the characters, I loved the quote seriousness, even though it was kind of goofy, but it was more as serious as you could get for a Saturday morning cartoon. But then they did different iterations of an X-Men cartoon as well that just never quite panned out. And I kind of feel like some of those, like an X-Men, but like a legit X-Men cartoon, they would pan out, would do really well. They've done Avengers cartoons. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is a really, really excellent 2-season long series of events that happens. And then they did Avengers ones after that, just kind of blah. They were okay. They were more kiddie and childish, but Earth's Mightiest Heroes were more adult themed, but for kids as well. So some of those comic book characters with some of their favorite groups, I think I'd love to see done better. More for not for 10-year-olds, but they don't have to be for me either. They could just be for a more not so childish themed audience, if that makes sense.
What about you,
Like that
Delvin?
answer. One of my shows I wanted to come back modernized already came back, and that's Transformers. The Transformers series on Netflix is basically based off of Generation 1, and it's a more serious take on it, so I'm happy with that. But if I was to pick a show besides that for them to modernize, it's going to have to be Batman the Animated Series. I feel like it's revolutionary. I feel like you could take that same art style and bring it in today, and it will still look impressive, and people will still watch it the same way and enjoy it. One of the best cartoon series of all time. It was fantastic. It didn't dumb itself down for kids, and it always told serious, interesting stories that everybody can watch and enjoy. I love Batman Animated Series. It's one of my favorite cartoon shows ever. Like that and Transformers are my shows.
Nice. All right, Lindsay, what about you?
So mine's not going to be for kids. It's going to be purely selfish because I did love this show when it was out, Duckman.
Great show.
And it needs to stay, like the animation style needs to stay. I mean, I'm really excited that they're bringing back Animaniacs, and I'm really excited that they're bringing back Animaniacs with all the original voice actors. Like, I hate it when they remake or, they reboot something and they don't use anybody from the original. It just kind of takes away from it. So it's really exciting to see that they're doing that. And the fact that it's going to be on Hulu, I'm not as worried that they're going to take away from, the vulgarness of Animaniacs. So that's exciting. So I'd like to see them do the same thing with Duckman. Duckman was an amazing cartoon back in the day. I loved it. Even though I was like 10 years old when it came out. I probably was too young to be watching it, but
Yep.
but yeah, my vote would be Duckman.
I like it. That's a good one. I've had a hankering for something slightly different. I would like to see G.I. Joe brought back in one of two ways. Either make it extraordinarily serious and have it be kind of a commentary on the current geopolitical landscape and what your place is in defending a country when you may or may not agree with all of everything that it does, when it puts you into ethical questions, and then just watch people lose their minds when they watch it the first time.
I would love that.
Not what I expected. Or go completely the other way, 1960s Batman, because they could never hit each other with anything in the original show, and just have them be completely oblivious to everything that's happening, kind of not Archer style, but closer to that kind of tongue-in-cheek approach to it would be so much fun.
Yeah. I like that answer. And I say that because watching the new Transformers series that's on Netflix, the Siege, it is dark. It is violent. And I was watching it with my son, and someone, I think the first episode, someone gets murdered. And he's like, holy crap. I'm like, yeah, they're getting down. They have no problem with killing off Transformers at all in brutal and violent ways. I'm like, this is awesome. This is amazing.
Well, that goes back to, your love of the Transformers, the movie. I mean, they just started wiping out all your favorites in that one with no regard whatsoever. And that's one of the reasons that movie was so good, is that it just took everything up a notch. So that's the right direction to go.
Well, and some of it's kind of a running joke too. My son is a huge Transformers fan, and one of his favorite characters always dies early. Every time. It's like Ironhide. He loves Ironhide.
Oh,
always dies.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's kind of a sad thing, but at the same time, it kind of matches everything else. If he starts to like a character in any show, you can lay money down that one of two things will happen: either it will die or turn evil. One of the two.
Yes.
I know we were watching the Shield television show, and you can guess which character he liked in the first season. Like, what do you mean he's Hydra? But oh yeah, so that is some definite good stuff. All right, well, let's go in a slightly different direction. So you're already, Linzi, you are going to be doing some work with some superheroics. How are you going to approach what is going to be your source of inspiration for doing the voice that you're going to do for the show?
Probably because I'm glad this is over Zoom, because I'm not gonna have anything thrown at me or anything like that. But I've never seen the Supergirl show. I have seen like Teen Titans and stuff like that, but in the Teen Titans, I don't ever remember seeing Supergirl. So, but I have seen Smallville. So I think you do get to meet her in a little bit in Smallville. So I think that's probably I have a chance to really put my own take on the character myself. And so I'm probably going to watch a couple episodes of Supergirl just to kind of get my head around it and everything. But I think I'm just going to bring my own personality to her, because watching Smallville with Clark Kent, I mean, he was such a goody two shoes, and I'm so sorry, but he was, until obviously the red kryptonite. So I don't know if I want Clara to be Miss Goody Two Shoes. I kind of want her to be a little bit of a badass.
That's always a good thing. If you're going for more of the badass approach, I I don't know if there's a great source material for that. I watched nearly all of the Supergirl television show. I have a few episodes left to finish, and I like it. It's a little inconsistent in its
Yes.
writing, which makes it, I feel, difficult to have the characters have the chance to really develop in a natural sort of a way. But Melissa Benoist, I'm
Yeah,
terrible.
something like that.
Yeah,
Be-
her approach was very, very concerned big sister, kind of is the feel that I got from that. But if you want kind of the badass take in a slightly different way, but still have that kind of shinier sheen, go back to the old 1984 Supergirl movie. I mean, she had kind of a no nonsense approach to things, and that's kind of fun. Or the Justice League delved a little bit into some darker look at Power Girl instead of Supergirl. She definitely had some really fun stuff.
Well, she was kind of she wasn't very nice in Smallville. I mean, she really didn't give a crap about the humans and stuff like that in Smallville. So I want to take a little bit of that, but also a little bit of the concerned big sister kind of thing, and just kind of make my own. Just make the part my own.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be so much fun. Now we're going to have to go into fantasy for the rest of it. I mean, if you fellas got to voice a part for any sort of animated show, who would you be? What about you? I'm sure you've got an immediate answer, Delvin.
That's hard. Who I'd want to be and who I'd be good for is probably two different things. I think honestly, I'd make a good Falcon. I think I'd be a solid Falcon.
I can see that.
A South Falcon or a War Machine. If they're to make a Captain America Winter Soldier cartoon show based off of Falcon being Captain America, I think I could do a good job at that. Probably him or Static Shock or somebody like that.
That was a fun show. That was a fun comic. I mean, of all the milestone stuff, that was the best one. I mean, it makes sense. It's the one that lasted, but that was so good.
Yeah. Or better yet, Miles Morales is dead. I think I'll do a good job of doing that voice.
That'd be good.
See you as Cyborg.
That could work. That could probably work. I had a good booyah.
Maybe I was going to go with more of a Mr. Miracle, possibly.
That could be cool too. I like Mr. Miracle.
What about you, Richard?
Probably more somebody that's more obscure in a certain sense, where it's not a main character, but it's a character that shows up like repeatedly all the time as the superheroes are pummeling or getting pummeled. This person shows up and it's just like, I don't know what's going on here. Like the lowest tier superhero that you can find that just shows up all the time. I don't know who exactly that would be, but
Booster Gold.
Booster's a
Booster
good one.
Gold.
But he can
He
be
has
really
that bravado,
Yes, he
the
does,
foolish bravado, which
he
is
can be serious though. You can tell if he's going to be like non-serious, have him be one of the Great Lakes Avengers.
Yeah.
GLA.
You could be Flatman.
Is it one named Boss Man or something like that?
That was from He-Man.
One is one is Doorman, whose special ability is to stand in front of an object and you can pass through him to pass through the other side. There is Mr. Immortal. Guess what his power is?
I could do that. Just repeatedly just get pummeled but never die.
Big Bertha. Also not exactly the most appropriate may not be the right word, but it wouldn't go over so well in a lot of circles right now, who is a supermodel that turns into a very, very large woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That could
her
be a
power.
problem.
Yeah, just a little bit. Occasionally Squirrel Girl is there on
We were talking about Squirrel Girl.
I told Lindsay about Squirrel Girl.
I want to play Squirrel Girl if they ever make a movie.
yeah, that would go
She
over
was
really
in
well.
she was in one of the Spider-Man animated shows on Disney XD.
Oh, I missed that.
She was
Yeah.
part of the team. She was part of the lineup.
Yeah, it's called, I can't remember. You can find it on Disney Plus.
Yep.
They did like after they did all the Avengers shows and stuff like that, they did Black Panther's Quest, which is excellent. And then they did like a show highlighting all the younger women Marvel characters and Squirrel Girls. And it's pretty cool, actually. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Marvel Rising.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna-
They were shorter episodes for sure. I thought they had her in a couple episodes of one of the Spider-Man series where they had a Spider-Man team, and it was like various people, like Luke Cage was part of the team, and
Ultimate Spider-Man.
but then after the first season or like the end of the second season, they brought in some more characters, and Squirrel Girl's one of those characters, I thought.
Yes, that was the season 3. They called like Ultimate Spider-Man, the New Warriors, something like that.
Yeah, yep. So it evolved for sure.
Just it's good. It's a fun mental exercise. I always wanted to be a villain. That's if I had the chance to voice anybody, I would love to voice some sort of villain. Maybe like like a Desaad or something. No, a
Doc Ock.
died. Oh yeah, that would work.
Doc Ock would work. I think maybe Doom would be cool.
Who?
Dr. Doom.
Oh, Dr. Doom. It's like you said Doom, I immediately thought of a guy in green armor shooting demons.
I thought you were gonna say MF Doom.
Oh, it's the rigors of the time of evening and certain liquids imbibed, I think is starting to take their toll.
Practice now. They call me Doorman.
Oh, well, I think that this may have to be something we revisit. I mean, this is just got so much gold to mine, and I'd even talk about some of the stuff that I had dug up, or the love of certain people like Christopher Collins. I mean, how can I have my childhood without Starscream and Cobra Commander being that voice?
You know who would be a great guest to have on the show to talk about that type of stuff?
Who would that be?
He does a show called Knowing It's Half the Podcast. His name's Ray Stacanis. And it's a G.I. Joe podcast where he does nothing but talk with his friends and talks about nothing but G.I. Joe episodes and other cartoon shows like Wayne Head and stuff like that. It's a really great podcast.
Nice.
He was great for this.
I'll
Does
mess with
anybody
it.
remember the cartoon Stripperella?
Yes.
Of course. Pamela Anderson.
Of course you know that cartoon, Delvin.
Of course you knew that cartoon, Lindsay.
Hush your mouth, Delvin.
This is a friendly environment, and nobody is going to get upset. No, that was HBO, wasn't it? When it came out, is that right?
Something like that. No, it was Spike TV.
Spike, right?
When Spike was trying to be all, we're gonna get nothing but shows for men. So they just had nothing but UFC, stripperella, and like wrestling.
That's
Okay,
probably
good luck with
why.
that.
it's
Other
watched.
things.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did. Wasn't that the channel that had the show 1,000 Ways to Die?
Oh yeah, it did have that too.
And I love that show. Just want to throw that out there. I know it's not a cartoon, but I love that show.
Spike TV just was something back then. They were, woo.
What
Totally
is
couldn't have
Spike TV now?
Is there Spike TV?
Somebody else bought it and changed it to something else. The
That's
complete
what I was
opposite of what it
thinking.
was.
Is it FXX or something now?
It might be that. I think at one point it was. I can't remember. Now I gotta look it up because I'm fascinated what it became.
Yeah, that is.
It's what I'm getting is Paramount Network.
That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
And
we should
before
watch
that, it was
movies on
something
that.
weird.
TNN.
Oh, right.
TNN. which is like a country network.
Turner, something.
Turner News
Okay.
Network. Isn't that what TNN?
Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
that
because they went from the Nashville network to the national network to the new TNN to Spike TV to Spike, and then it's Paramount Network
Yeah.
now.
I remember it being TNN because, and it being a country network because they played TNA wrestling on TNN.
right.
Okay, so it stands for the Nashville network.
Yes.
We'll go with that. Well, I got to say thank you so much for both of you coming on and hanging out for an hour and talking about cartoons and just geeking out for a little bit and making things fun. Don't forget to check out the Delvin Cox Experience if you get a chance. He's always got some good guests to talk to and is always a lot of fun. And I hear that Linzi will be back on podcasting somewhat soon.
One day,
One day.
sometime in 2020.
Yeah. And
I don't know the way 2020 is going.
it's been a little dark, but of course you can find all of us on Twitter. And the most important thing to remember out of all of this is to help support us on the platforms that help us do what we do. Delvin Cox has a Patreon site where you can support him and get exclusive content. We have a Patreon site where for just $1 a month, you can help support us as we get new equipment and attempt to elevate, go to the next level. And we're going to have some neat stuff, I swear, eventually coming up on that. I have a tech person. Uh-oh, Lindsay's got her hand up. Yes?
I don't have a Patreon, but you can send me cash anyways via PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. I take all major credit cards too. Checks, as long as they're good. I prefer cold hard cash, but
I keep telling someone to get a Cash App, but they don't listen to me. So that's on them.
I have Venmo. What are you talking about? A Cash App, and I have PayPal.
Cash App is way easier.
Okay, so now we know
Such
what our
a-
next debate's going to be. What are the best apps in order to try and squeeze as much dollars out of everybody as you possibly?
Yes.
Just need a Lindsey Gray QR code that we can put up.
That's
People
right.
scan it. Bingo. Done.
I'm
But-
so gonna figure out how to make one.
Cash App, dork. I keep
Don't you-
telling you.
Dork me. Fine, Cash App. I'll Google this or whatever.
Good stuff. I love you guys. But until next time, keep on listening and keep your eyes out. We got some really good stuff coming up, some interesting people to talk to, and we will see you next time.